At Arizona State University, we're bringing world-class education from our globally acclaimed faculty to you. Earn your degree from the nation's most innovative university. Online. That's a degree better. Learn more at asuonline.asu.edu.
In the time it takes you to actually board a flight from Group 8...
Now boarding Premier Altitude Elite Club members.
You could have bought a Hyundai on Amazon. Visit HyundaiUSA.com or call 562-314-4603 for more details. Limited availability. Pick up through participating Hyundai dealer in select markets.
The United States got involved in the fighting in Vietnam gradually. At first supporting France's war in the country. Then, several years after that, in 1965, sending in combat forces, the start of the American war in Vietnam.
I was going through some tough times.
That's Nicholas War. His involvement in Vietnam happened all at once when he landed in Da Nang on November 15th, 1967.
I'm having problems and I'm self-medicating.
Nick fought in a complicated war. Then, like many Vietnam veterans, he left that country but struggled to leave the war and all its complications behind.
My ex-wife, second ex-wife, at one point she said, you're all screwed up. You need to go get some help, okay? So I did.
But he realizes after months of telling his entire life story, he's not telling the therapist anything about the war. He says he's blocked it all out of his memory.
It told me, wow, there's something really screwy up here, okay?
But then his father passed away.
I didn't shed a tear. I didn't mourn at all for my father until 2 days into that, before the burial, my oldest brother said, I don't know anything about what you experienced in Vietnam. Would you tell me? And at that moment, all the memories came back. All the memories came back. And I was overwhelmed. I remembered everything.
Trying to find this.
Larry Lewis's daughter's kitchen.
It was just wild at times.
In Georgia, but so close you could almost hear Tennessee.
Here I'm 19 years old.
You can also hear the hum.
And I'm still wet behind the ears.
Of the refrigerator.
The reality set in, and we knew, it's all out of our hands.
We talked about Larry's tour in the Vietnam War.
It's all up to God, whether or not we survive. And after a while, it didn't matter.
These Marines have never met, but those memories that caused Nick to choke back tears to this day are from the same historic battle, where Larry says his survival ceased to matter. All my conversations with Larry Lewis have one specific thing or one specific battle in common.
Way City.
The battle changed Larry Lewis's life. One day in that battle changed Nick War's life. And depending how you choose to think about it, you could say it's the battle that changed everything.
What kind of fighting is it going to be? It's house to house and from room to room.
Death was just everywhere.
One of the Marines that kicked the door open.
We just had a message from Westmoreland that's quite different from the interpretation we were placing on the message last night.
Over time, what we did became pretty legendary, if you really think about it that way.
Today, I want to tell you a story about the battle for Hue and the war in Vietnam. My name is Josh Rowe, and this is Tomorrowtown, Tennessee. This is episode 1 of our series on the Battle for Hue, and right before our theme song there, you heard several voices talking about the battle. You'll meet all of them soon. But first, this is Grady.
Grady Birdsong.
Birdsong.
Thanks for doing this. I appreciate it.
Birdsong.
Yes, sir.
Grady Birdsong was there for the final days of the Battle for Hue. Since then, he spent a lot of time studying what happened there.
Is there a resource that you think out there that captures, a better essence of what happened?
He gave me a few suggestions.
Nick War's book is probably one of the best that I've read.
Those therapists Nick went to see suggested that he take all those memories of the war and write them down.
The first time I tried working on this, you know what I did? I went in my living room with a bottle of tequila and I've turned on a tape recorder.
He wrote and rewrote for 13 years. But when he finally finished, he had written one of the best first-person accounts we have of the Vietnam War.
He included the emotional part of it along with a lot of the facts.
For years, Nick's book, Phase Line Green, was on the Marine Corps Commandant's suggested reading list. Hue was among the longest battles of the war and is often considered the bloodiest. So many of those who fought there early in the battle didn't make it to the end. Larry Lewis fought with Alpha 1-1, Alpha Company, 1st Battalion, 1st Marines.
It's something that, you'll never forget.
The Marines of Alpha 1-1 were the first U.S. troops to go to Hue after the city was taken by soldiers from North Vietnam. Every time I talk to Larry Lewis, I feel I have a better understanding of the battle, but also a better understanding of Larry.
No 19 or 20-year-old, 18-year-old should ever see what we saw. You bury it and you figure that it'll stay there, but it's like sewage. Over the years, it's kept seeping back up. There's actually 3 corpsmen working on this one Marine. And all he was saying is, I want my mama. I want my mama, And I told him, I said, that in there won't ever go away until the day the Lord takes me home.
I started this story with Larry and Nick because they were the first 2 of the more than a dozen veterans I talked to for this telling. And when I heard what you just heard, I wanted to understand what exactly happened there. And to understand that, we start with the day before the battle started.
That's when they started getting us all together saying, we got to go to the airfield.
January 30th of 68.
They were taking the Marines out of the Z one by one by one.
The Z, the DMZ, the demilitarized zone, the border area between North and South Vietnam at the time of this story.
We were the last company to get out.
Bill Purcell grew up on the Upper East Side of New York. He's 19 years old, and he's in Alpha 1-1 with Larry Lewis. They're in a place called Quang Tri trying to catch a helicopter to Phu Bai.
They said this was going to be like a little rest and relaxation.
Clean clothes, showers, hot shower, the whole 9 yards.
They couldn't get but just a couple of helicopters out of there.
Less than 2/3 of the company got out that night. Bill Purcell made it to Phu Bai. Larry Lewis, a few Alpha Company officers, and many other Marines were stuck in Quang Tri. Now, the group from Alpha Company who did make it to Phu Bai is on standby in case anything happens around the area. But right now, R&R.
We got to go to Slop Shoot, the enlisted man's bar. You get a good reason why it's called that.
Bob Lawver, an Army sergeant, also got to Phu Bai that day.
Partied with our buddies that were with the Quad 50s down there.
And he also hit the bar.
We were feeling no pain by the time we went to bed, but we got up about 2 o'clock with the rocket attack.
We got shelled. Big rockets coming in.
Those rockets hitting Phu Bai were the start of the Tet Offensive. Now, there were some groups who attacked a night early, but the plan was to start the early morning hours of January 31st, and most attacks did start that night. But that night, these men didn't know anything about that. The Tet Offensive was a major event in the war. It's considered among the most effective surprise attacks in the history of warfare. And what happened over the next few weeks in Hue is a big reason why Tet is remembered this way. Around the same time the Marines in Phu Bai are being shelled, the city of Hue is also under attack and is being taken over by a few thousand North Vietnamese soldiers, the NVA. In the early morning hours of January 31st, there are attacks happening all across South Vietnam.
And on the night of 31 January 1968, I was down at the bottom, but that's the night that the Tet Offensive was launched.
This is Nick War again. The reason he's a bit difficult to hear is because we're on a bus. I met Nick a few months ago when we were part of a group visiting Vietnam. We were going over the Hai Van Pass, a mountain pass about 30 miles south of Phu Bai. At the same time that rocket attack woke up Bill Purcell, Bob Lawver, and the others, something is being blown up all over this mountain.
We just heard lots of explosions.
Every bridge and culvert was blown up on the mountain that night. This morning is also the start of the single deadliest day for American forces in the war in Vietnam. Nick is with the Charlie 15 Marines at the bottom of that mountain in Lang Co Village. What's it like to be here? What's it like to visit this place?
I love this place.
He said, "I loved this place." We stepped off the bus in Lane Cove, a small fishing village known for oysters. We're on a busy road next to a lagoon, mountains, and blue skies.
I knew that our enemy was tough. I respect those guys tremendously.
We were having a conversation standing inside a living postcard.
Lane Cove was our favorite town because it is so wonderful. You look at the scenery.
I was struggling to picture this village as a war zone.
Is it emotional to come back to a place that you fought as hard as you did and lost brothers and those kind of things?
Well, absolutely, that part of it. But also, you know, in war you see lots of ugly things. There's no question about it. But you also see deeds and actions and love and young men who are simply trying to do their job and try to avoid, you know, going home in a body bag.
Now back in Fubai, they were shelled in the middle of the night, but then things calmed down, so they went back to bed.
An hour or so later, we got kicked out of the bunk again.
Back to Bill Purcell.
Come on, we had to go. There's a CAC unit getting overrun south of here. We had to go down and help them. So we boarded trucks, headed south.
Alpha 11 left Fubai heading south toward Lane Cove, but they didn't find anything. So they turned around and went back north. This time, they went straight through Fubai and kept going.
In the south gate, out the north gate, and we headed toward what we didn't know was Way City.
Fubai was about 9 miles south of Way, the closest U.S. combat base to the city and a major Marine Corps headquarters. They had reports that the MAC-V compound in Way was under attack. MAC-V, Military Assistance Command Vietnam. Inside the compound, U.S. troops supporting the South Vietnamese military. It's not clear how many people were inside the compound that morning, but it typically housed about 200.
We got up to where Route 1 took a dramatic right-hand turn. It was a blown-up South Vietnamese tank.
You met Bob Lawver earlier. He was in the bar in Fubai. He drove a Quad 50 big truck with big guns. He described what he saw when he passed those burned-out tanks.
First looked at it, and it looked like the commander of the tank was gesturing to do something, and then you realize that he had been in the hatch, and the RPG had come in the hatch and popped the top part of his body out of the hatch, and he'd landed on top of the deck. And it was only half of him standing there.
Several South Vietnamese dead laying around there. We couldn't proceed on trucks, so we dismounted.
Purcell was a machine gunner, carried an M60.
Our right guide, Bobby Velba, came back, stumbling back. He'd been shot in both arms.
Along the route, Alpha Company came across a group of Marine Corps tanks that joined the convoy.
They told us, mount up, get on the tanks. I was on the second tank. First tank went across the small bridge on the Phu Cam Canal, and all hell broke loose. That tank got ripped with automatic weapon fire, rocket fire, and that tanker gunned it and took off up the road. As he did that, our tanker guns it and he starts to go across the bridge, and I'm thinking, didn't he see what the hell just happened? So we get into it.
The ambush at the Phu Cam Canal is a significant moment in the beginning of the legendary battle at Way.
Luckily, I had the turret right next to me, so I was being shielded. The guys on the right side took the worst of it.
One of the factors that make this battle legendary is the heroic actions of these Marines in this fight. One Marine on the tanks was wounded and fell to the ground. The 21-year-old platoon commander for Alpha Company's 3rd Platoon, Alfredo Freddy Gonzalez, ran through a hail of bullets and picked up that wounded Marine. As he charges in to get the Marine out of danger, Sergeant Gonzalez is hit in the leg with fragments from a rocket. Still, he's able to get that Marine to a safer area.
We got wounded. We dragged off the tanks with us, and they were laying in the street, and we formed a circle around them. And we were firing to every window, doorway, whatever we could find. And we kicked in the doors and got the wounded out of the street, and they were shot up pretty bad.
And remember, Alpha 11 has nowhere near their full company.
There was 8,000 to 10,000 NVA that had already infiltrated the whole area, the whole metropolitan area, Way and around.
In the legendary battles in Marine Corps history, you see one thing over and over again. Marines significantly outnumbered and outgunned, but still overcoming those challenges.
We got up to a rather large roundabout. Right in front of that roundabout was a causeway.
An elevated road.
Maybe 10 feet above the rice paddies on both sides.
My name is William Tant.
Do you go by Bill, Billy?
I go by Bill, born and raised here in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, on a little old family farm.
Bill Tant had been in country about 5 weeks.
You got there on Christmas, is that right?
I got there, the way I got there right at Christmas Day. Might have been Christmas Eve.
Tell me where you were the morning hours of the 31st of January.
We were down in Fubai. We'd been on a night ambush the night before. We just kind of hanging around, and all of a sudden word would come out for us to get ready. We was going to move up to a place called Way City.
Private First Class Bill Tant fought with the Gulf 25 Marines in Vietnam.
Up the road comes another convoy.
About 30 minutes after Alpha 11 got to that roundabout
is Gulf 25.
Just like Bill Purcell, Bill Tant is 19.
Yeah, but I knew everything, man. I was 19 years old. I was in the Marine Corps.
I guess our battalion commander, Colonel Gravel, heard what was going on the radio and scrambled and got Gulf 25 to come up with him. And that was pretty good. We had some more help.
Lance Corporal Barney Barnes was also in that convoy with Gulf 25.
Did you know that Alpha 11 was there and in a fight?
We did not. We did. Now, somebody knew it, but we didn't know it, or at least on the platoon level anyway. And so we started out, and the first thing I noticed is there was no kids out in the street. Anytime a convoy would come by, kids would run out to the edge of the road and beg for food or candy, or what they called it, chop chop. Chop chop me, souvenir me.
Mm-hmm.
But there was none of that. And probably on the outskirts of Way, we saw an ARVN tank.
ARVN, Army of the Republic of Vietnam, soldiers from South Vietnam.
I don't know what it was hit with.
The same burned out tank the first convoy saw.
There was a guy, ARVN, it was an ARVN tank, and he was hanging out of the turret, and he was literally just burnt to a crisp.
Thought, well, something's happening here that we don't know about.
Barney Barnes and Bill Tant are both from Alabama.
I'd not been in any firefight at all. I guess I'm like any other young man, naive. I wanted to mix it up. I wanted to go get them. I just knew I'd seen a few guys wounded, and I knew from what I'd seen in the movies, we supposed to be fighting somebody, and I ain't fighting nothing.
Then when we crossed the Anku Bridge over the Phu Cam Canal, we started getting incoming fire.
When they started hollering, get off the trucks, now I'm scared. Now I'd heard a few rounds go close by, and I had seen some of the guys from Alpha 11, I'd seen Marines laying there. And when I dismounted that truck, I ran straight out the back. Well, nobody had dropped the tailgate, and I just fell out and busted my nose right there on Highway 1, getting off the truck.
So you wanted to get into the fight, but when the fight started, you were...
I changed my mind, and it would progressively get worse.
Made our way to the traffic circle. Captain Meadows went into a Shell gas station.
Captain Chuck Meadows, company commander, Gulf 25 Marines.
Found a map of the city. That's the only map we had.
The decision was made we were going to proceed over the causeway.
We were picking up their wounded, and of course we were getting wounded.
Halfway, 2/3 of the way across, they opened up on us. So we all dove down to the bottom of the causeway.
We ran into 1-1 on the causeway, and they were all shot up. So we knew then that there's more to it than what we were told.
Word came back. Alpha 6 is down. That's Captain Batchelor.
Captain Gordon Batchelor. He was Alpha 11's company commander and the only officer in that first convoy that left Phu Bai that morning. One officer just rotated back home. Another was in Da Nang for training. All the rest were up in Quang Tri with Larry Lewis. Now, Gordon Batchelor would survive his injuries, but this would end his tour in Vietnam.
Did you know those guys at all, or were they just kind of new Marines to you at that point?
No, we didn't know anything about them.
No.
We just know that they were in bad shape.
Our platoon sergeant, Sergeant Gonzalez, G's, I called him. And he says, get online, fix bayonets on 3, we charge. And I said, gee, this isn't horrible. What the hell are you doing? You know what I mean? He says, shut up and get online. Well, you don't fix the bayonet on the machine gun, number one. But sure enough, he says 3 and up we went. It was the worst mud you could imagine, up to your knees. You're trying to run for this stuff. Just beat the hell out of you.
During the fight to get into the city, Alpha Company is taking heavy fire from a machine gun bunker on the side of the road. Sergeant Alfredo Gonzalez once again exposes himself to the fire, and with the help of others in 3rd Platoon, crawls to the machine gun position, getting close enough to throw several grenades into the bunker, killing everyone inside. This was Sergeant Gonzalez's second tour in the war, but he'd only been back with Alpha Company for a short time.
We had never seen him in action until Way City. So we didn't know what to expect, but he's a good man, good Marine.
I'm sure after seeing that, it was an instant kind of respect for that kind of thing.
Yep. Him and the gunny.
John Canley will always be the gunny to these Marines, even though he retired as a sergeant major. When Sergeant Gonzalez threw those grenades into that bunker, John Canley was right there on the attack with him. There's more to the story of Sergeant Major Canley in the bunker, and we'll get to that in a future episode. Every time I talk to Larry Lewis, he tells me stories of John Canley at Way.
I'm here today because of his leadership. There's not a one of us in Alpha Company wouldn't say he saved our lives. He had no fear. He taught me first how to be a man, how a man's supposed to act. And then he taught me how to be a Marine.
Larry told me that last part there back in 2022. There's video of the moment. In that video, he's holding a picture of Larry with his old friend, the gunny, John Canley. John Canley and Alfredo Gonzalez were both awarded the Medal of Honor for their actions in the battle, and both of their Medal of Honor citations include actions from January 31st, 1968. But at this moment in the battle, Alpha 1-1 and Golf 2-5 are getting closer to Way and closer to the MACV compound that's currently surrounded by thousands of NVA troops. Also, at this moment, Larry Lewis and a few dozen Alpha 1-1 Marines are still more than 35 miles away in Quang Tri. They were also hit overnight. Big mortar attack. One Alpha Company Marine was killed, several others wounded. And at this point, they don't know what's happening down in Way. January 31st, 1968. That was the deadliest day for American service members in the 10-year war in Vietnam. Record keeping in the war was less than perfect, but according to records, 246 Americans were killed in action that day.
The 1-1 guys that I've talked to, described that first hit, pretty intense as far as what they had seen before then.
This is Barney Barnes from Golf 2-5 again.
How did that compare to the fighting you had seen before at that point?
Well, we weren't prepared for Way City. We came straight out of the jungle, basically.
And here they are, ambushed and drastically outnumbered going into a major city.
And the word kept going, we got to get into the city. And it was a 4 feet in diameter drainage pipe between the road, the rice paddy, and the city. So we crawled through the pipe, got into the city, secured the 2 buildings on the edge of the road. And then the rest of the convoy advanced forward, and we moved up to the MACV compound.
The compound had been under attack throughout the night and morning. The group inside held off the attacks, but suffered several losses. The 2 undersized companies of Marine reinforcements had just seen some of the worst fighting they had encountered so far in the war in Vietnam. The Marines showed up battered and carrying their dead and wounded. They have no idea how many enemy soldiers are surrounding the compound at this point. They just know there are a lot of them and they are severely outnumbered. Still, when those Marines make it inside the compound, everyone inside erupts with cheers.
They were really happy to see us, the Army guys in the MACV compound. They didn't realize we were a handful.
And what few in this group realize at this point, this tragic day is far from over. Battle That Changed Everything is a special mini-series on the battle for Hue and the war in Vietnam, and is part of our podcast, Tomorrowtown, Tennessee. This podcast is hosted, produced, recorded, edited, and all the other things by me, Josh Rowe. And tomorrow we will release a brand new interview with Grady Birdsong, who you heard from this episode. In that conversation, we get into why the Tet Offensive matters, and the changes in leadership, military and political, and so much more. That is tomorrow on Tomorrowtown. And next time on the battle that changed everything.
I often wondered, and I don't care if I'm going to hurt some officer's feelings, I could care less.
Somebody in the rear,
who is the idiot?
Brigadier General, didn't know what the hell was going on, or did Golf 2-5.
Basically 2 platoons to cross that deadgum Perfume River Bridge.
Get to the Citadel.
One of the blessings of that day was we had no idea how big a force they had, and they had no idea how small of a force we were, because if they had known that, they would have wiped us out completely.
You can find extended interviews and more on my YouTube channel that is at Josh Rowe, Joshroe. Just look for the section at the top of the page titled The Battle That Changed Everything. And a special thank you to the good folks behind the Longest Climb Foundation. They organized the trip to Vietnam we discussed earlier in this episode with Marine Corps veteran Nicholas War. Also, this series would not be possible without all the many books and texts and videos produced previously about the battle for Hue. You can find more on the resources that provided valuable background for this series in the show notes for this episode. Tomorrowtown, Tennessee is a production of News Channel 9, Fox Chattanooga, and Sinclair Broadcast Group Chattanooga. I hope you join me again real soon.
At Arizona State University, we've made online education better, smarter, and more personalized, so you can go further in your aspiring field.
I decided to pursue medicine once I realized that ASU did have the online program for biological sciences. You're still required to learn the same curriculum. You're still being tested on the same content that anyone would be tested on in person. The comprehensiveness of the program prepared me so well for medical school.
Explore over 350 plus programs at asuonline.asu.edu.